Let's get started straight away. Jack, tell us, please, the North London derby, the winners, the losers. Go.
Well, the big winners were obviously Arsenal, and I think the big winners, along with that, were Arsenal's title aspirations. It does very much feel like we're at a point now where we can almost give it to them in certain respects. It feels a bit like, I would liken it to when Liverpool won the league in 2019. You have these few seasons where it's quite tricky, you come quite close and stuff, but you take learnings from every single year. You start finding where the bottlenecks are, where the problems are, and then you find the solutions for them. And it feels like now Arsenal are at a point where they kind of have a solution and potential solution to kind of any problem they can face. I think we've seen plenty of problems heading into this weekend's game with Gabriel being injured, obviously Victor Gyökeres being injured, Martin Ødegaard being injured. You also still have Havertz out and Gabriel Jesus out. And it just felt like none of that mattered. They still had people who could come in, do the same role, play the same role, and make a difference. We've seen that with Eze playing where Ødegaard usually plays. Obviously scored a hat-trick, is one arguably his best game of his life on Sunday, in a game where the attention was probably all on him as well because of the transfer news about him potentially signing for Spurs in the summer, opting to sign for Arsenal instead because he's a fan. And then also, really importantly, we've seen it with the replacement of Gabriel in the middle of the defence with Hincapié. Like, that's a sign in there that in the summer probably went over a lot of people's heads. Probably a lot of people weren't really thinking about that signing as being one who could really move the needle for Arsenal. But it just goes back to what I said about trying to find solutions to problems. 2 years ago, William Saliba was injured. That was a problem that they could not find a solution for, and it kind of cost them the title. Last year, they had the Saka injury as well. Couldn't really find a solution to that too. This year, when they miss out on a player like Gabriel, who I think's been their best player this season by quite a considerable distance, they have 3 or 4 options that can slot in alongside Saliba and do that job for him. Hincapié was one option. They could also put Mosquera in there. They could have very easily moved Calafiori or Jurriën Timber into the centre of defence as well. It is just they're at a place now where they have a squad where no matter what happens, essentially, no matter who gets injured, they'll have an option to fill in that need and still be able to play to their top level and still be able to use that tactic that Mikel Arteta loves and that formation that he loves as well.
Mark, I'm going straight to you. You've been on the pitch in the biggest games with the best teams where there's so much on the line. Jack is obviously a journalist. He's just suggested after 12 games, with Arsenal 6 points clear, we give them the title.
Yeah, Sam, we can't always say, like, after 12 games, Arsenal are going to win the title. But what's interesting is it's very similar to last season with Liverpool. I think a lot of the teams are losing around them as well. So there's seem to be this competition that we've seen in, not last season, but the previous seasons where Liverpool and Manchester City were fighting it out. I think Arsenal at the moment, it's theirs to lose. But I think by Christmas, I think we'll have a clearer picture.
Kieran, I've got to ask you, do you agree with that?
I think Mark's made a fair point. But football can change. We've got quite a few fixtures taking place in a relatively concentrated point in time. If Arsenal have extended that lead by the end of December, then they've got to be considered to be very, very hot favourites. I mean, clearly they are hot favourites at present. They've got Chelsea this weekend. What happens if they lose to Chelsea and Manchester City when all of a sudden they get dragged back into it? So we're all experienced enough in football to know that a Christmas and New Year fixture of 3 or 4 games can be transformative at both ends of the table. You only need a couple of bits of luck, a couple of injuries that you weren't expecting, a suspension which you hadn't budgeted for, and everything can change. It's still far too early.